I've always, as you would know from previous contact, I've been interested in politics and just been interested in having a more conservative voice in politics. And I figure that it doesn't look like that there's really anybody else doing it. And I discussed it with my husband and he said, well, somebody's got to.
Here on The Colour of Country Life, we're here with Caterina Johnston. She's running in the state election for One Nation. G'day, Caterina.
Hi, Rikki.
Great to have you here with us in the studios, Caterina, and really appreciate you dropping in to see us. Now, you're running for the One Nation Party in the state election in the seat of Frome. Now, first of all, where do you live? You live in the electorate of Frome?
Definitely. I live in Kapunda.
And Kapunda was in the electorate of Stewart, but it's shifted boundary now. You're in Frome?
Correct.
So a bit like Jeff Brock, he's leaving Frome to run for Stewart because Port Pirie left Frome to become a Stewart electorate area. You're coming into it now as you were in Stewart. You're going to run for Frome against, well, the Liberals, Penny Pratt, and as far as we know, Kate Hunter, the independent candidate. We haven't been able to get Penny Pratt to come even respond to our phone calls. What does that tell you about the Liberal Party's attitude towards the electorate?
They think they've got it in the bag. Basically,
yep. And
because it is a conservative electorate.
Yep, but they don't hold the electorate. It was previously held by Jeff Brock, but it's changed its boundaries, I suppose.
It has changed its boundaries, but when you look at basically we've got parts of 4 electorates in the one electorate, and when you go through all the numbers and that sort of thing, it's a very conservative electorate overall, like 65% plus.
And as a matter of disclosure, I do know you from the past in the Conservative movement, so you've a good fit, in a sense, in a Conservative electorate. What are some of the reasons you've put your hand up to run for the seat of Frome?
Well, I've always, as you would know from previous contact, I've been interested in politics and just been interested in having a more conservative voice in politics. And I figure that it doesn't look like that there's really anybody else doing it. And I discussed it with my husband and he said, well, somebody's got to, and I've quit driving trucks now. So he said, it might as well be you because you got the time to do it. And there've been things like over the last, a couple of years really that have really irked me. And like the abortion to birth bill was like the first one, and I was signing so many petitions and all that sort of thing and writing emails to all the politicians and that sort of thing. And I got responses from some good positive responses, and then a lot who just didn't bother. And then federally there was the surveillance identify and disrupt bill that went through, and that sort of like exploded in my mind to go, that's it. I've just had it. I can't stand this anymore.
Yeah, like the sort of mad as hell thing. But
that's right.
Let's wind back to the abortion issue you mentioned. We'll come back to the surveillance one in a moment. The liberalisation of abortion laws, this has happened under a Liberal government. Did that surprise you that it wasn't a Labor government that changed and made abortion a lot easier to obtain?
To be honest, I was surprised, but also not surprised because they're not really what one would think is conservative anymore anyway. They're heading more and more, they call themselves moderates, but I think that they're more to the left than just moderate. They're not central. And yes, it did surprise me, but had the backing of a lot of women in there, and the Greens, Tammy Franks, and a lot of Labor ladies, and I just sort of thought, this is so wrong. But yes, it did surprise me, but also didn't. It's hard to say.
So was it wrong in your view that the laws became very similar to what they are in Victoria, basically, like you say, abortion up to birth or abortion on demand without really any hoops for women to go through to get an abortion in many instances? Yeah,
I can't see what was wrong with the previous laws. I can understand that they wanted them legalised, as in taken out of the criminal law. Fair enough for that, and nobody's been ever charged, I think, since 1968 or 69 or something like that, when there was only one woman who was charged, and that's an awful long time ago. But when they were presenting that argument in the media, and that they were just saying, we want to take it out of criminal law and legal, just make it easier so that doctors aren't scared to do it, blah, blah, blah. But then they introduced a whole raft of other changes that they didn't really bother to tell anybody about, including, that if you're, like, say you're 38 weeks pregnant, you split up with your partner or whatever, you don't think it's going to go ahead, you can just go and get an abortion even though the baby is totally fine.
38 weeks. You
can get abortion up to the day before birth, even probably at birth. You can get an abortion right up to then. And it's disgusting.
So if you're elected,
can save babies at 23, 24 weeks.
If you're elected, is that something you look to wind back if you're on the crossbench, balance of power?
Definitely, and that's definitely something the whole One Nation Party is behind, to wind back.
Okay, now just want to come to that surveillance issue you mentioned, but you mentioned you drive trucks, or you were driving trucks. You're, a small business owner?
Yeah. My husband and myself, we started Johnno's Express Freight in Kapunda almost 20 years ago, I think, this year. And we're still going, but, with reduced coverage because he's driving by himself now, because I just got sick of being on the road 50 hours plus a week, and then you've got all the other, like I'll still be doing the accounting work and the book work, that sort of thing, invoicing.
Well, at least if you're successful running for the seat of Frome, you're not in Stewart. It's a big electorate if it had been Stewart. So Frome's a bit smaller to cover.
That's true.
Now,
I'm used to the distances.
These concerns you have about surveillance, is this all about the whole freedom debate and vaccination, or is it more specific about this particular federal bill you referred to?
No, no. It's not anything to do with vaccination it's kind of to do with freedom in the sense that now it is legal for the Australian Federal Police, and I can't remember the other group, but it's an Australian, a federal government group that can actually access or hack into your computer, access your emails, send out emails on your behalf that you won't even know about. They can get into your Facebook and all the things they could already do, let's face it. But it was illegal. And if you could prove, like if they set you up, which they could do now, if the government decides that you are part of a group that they're going to call a home terrorist, homegrown terrorist, they can decide to target you, hack into everything, set you up like you're trying to do something that's going to be a terrorist activity.
So what, like plant evidence is you
Plant evidence. Yeah. They're going to be pretending to be you. They can email whoever on your behalf and get responses back on your behalf, and you may not even know that they got it. And I have spoken to a lawyer about this, and he said the concerns that the Australian legal fraternity have about it was that, for one thing, this is going to be legal, and if you are, how are you going to prove that it wasn't you who set up a terrorist activity somewhere or other when they are going to have all this fabricated evidence against you? And even if you could prove it, they don't have to keep a record of what your computer state was like before they started fiddling with all the information on there. And, whereas before you'd have a leg to stand on because you could go, this is all set up, we'll investigate it, blah, 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 and prove it was the police set me up. And then the police would be in great big trouble. But now, how are you going to prove it? And the other thing is it's legal. How can it be legal? How can that be legal?
Well, not one I'm terribly across, but something I imagine if you've in the Parliament, you'll have federal colleagues like Pauline, Hanson, Malcolm Roberts, the senators, to follow those up with the federal police, for instance.
Yes.
Just on the state issues, how do you feel the Marshall government has handled the pandemic?
Well, it seems like they're sort of like floating between the difference of what science is today and science is tomorrow, because it all seems to depend on whether Marshall wants to go to the fringe or not, or whether he wants to do something as to when restrictions start getting lifted. And, it just seems...
So you're sceptical about the timing of when restrictions have lifted? I mean, they're largely going to be gone days before the state election.
Yeah, well, that's good for the state election. Although, like if you've got scrutineers, they're going to have to be vaccinated to be able to do that job, but your other volunteers don't have to be, which is good. At least you've got a choice there. But No, just, I don't know. I just think it seems coincidental that whenever there's somewhere where he wants to go, suddenly restrictions seem to lift. I don't know. Maybe
he's magic. Maybe we need Stephen Marshall to visit regional areas more often.
That's it.
Just lastly, having a bit of a laugh there. One Nation's been pretty sharp with the videos they've released, and one of them is about the ABC, one of the latest ones that's come out, and Scott Morrison giving money to the ABC because he wants his tummy tickled. What is your view on regional broadcasting and the work the ABC's done in regional areas?
Well, they are important because sometimes they're the only station you can get. But I think that we need more. Personally, I would like to see more little radio stations, more like country towns having their own little radio station, their own voice for their own community, and being able to actually transmit further out than currently, It's so annoying. But the ABC, I don't know, it seems to be quite it'd be sort of like a lefty sort of promoting organisation, and I don't think that Scott Morrison's probably got quite enough money to get them on his side, really.
So just to be clear, when you mentioned lefty, the One Nation Party you would place politically as what, more conservative, on the conservative side of the Liberal Party?
Yeah, I think we're more conservative, a lot more conservative than the Liberal Party, I think.
But I think
although there are people within the Liberal Party that are conservatives. And same with Labor.
Yes, but with I think Rex Patrick, the federal senator for South Australia, said he's running for the Senate, and he's said he's calling out what he calls far-right Queensland parties of One Nation and Clive Palmer's United Australia Party. Would you accept the terminology that you're far-right?
No, I don't think so, because there are plenty of people, even within our party, that are not as conservative as some others. And no, I don't think so. Far right is like saying, I don't know, the Greens are extremely far left, and they probably might not think that they're extremely far left. But
well, will we see Pauline Hanson visiting South Australia anytime in the next few weeks?
Hopefully. I don't know when, though.
Caterina Johnston, thank you for joining us, candidate for Frome. Much appreciated, and all the best with your travels.
Thank you very much, Rikki.